I'm really happy to be at this conference because I'm hoping to get the answer to one question that's been on my mind ever since I took a job as a chief digital officer, which is, what the hell is a chief digital officer? I honestly don't really know, and I think that everybody that has the title chief digital officer has a completely different job. I've seen no similarities. So I can tell you what it is in my shop, which is all I can speak to. So I oversee all of the digital properties of NBC News, which includes, and I'll rattle these off in 15 seconds or left, NBCnews.com, Today.com, the soon-to-be-launched MSNBC.com, iVillage.com, thegrio.com, NBCLatino.com, BreakingNews.com, Newsvine.com, GardenWeb.com, and my all-time favorite, Astrology.com, which on another session we can talk about how that fits into a news division, but I'll have to consult my charts on that one. But so that as well as
the crystal ball.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where the crystal ball comes in. Exactly. So they help me see into the future of digital media. But this is so it's both the properties as well as and maybe this is where it perhaps unique or maybe not unique in my organization is. And I would imagine for many chief digital officers it's the same thing. It's not just about running these all the things that go into running a business, which is all those pictures, the crystal ball and the curiosity and the guesses and the hunches and the management of people. But I also feel like a big part of my responsibility is to help the entire news organization, whether it's a producer on the Today Show or a shooter in a far off bureau, for the entire organization to help everybody think about what it means to be a multi-platform organization. And anybody that's worked in a legacy news organization knows that's tough. I mean, a place like NBC News, people are so good at what they do. And in some ways, being so good at what you do, I think, can be a hindrance into thinking about how you change the way you work, change the way you think about the audience, change the way you think about how you release information over the course of the day. So it's in two parts, and I would suspect, and it'll be interesting to see over the course of the day if other chief digital officers feel the same way, that it is the work and then it's sort of the cultural issues. Mm-hmm. So but that's, to me, that's what makes it fun. I mean, the one commonality that I've had in every place that I've worked for has been a brand that means something to the consumer. And while all of these, with the exception of NPR, all of these organizations are about making money, of course, what I have loved about each place is that it's about a service and providing a service to the public, to the consumer, beyond just shareholder value.
Right.
So, I mean, that's sort of a very high-level snapshot of what I do.
Terrific. That's great. Thank you. First question, back in the sort of the spring time frame of 2012, right around that time, and don't know for certain whether it was this was initiated sort of as part of the announcement about the purchase of MSNBC.com, or whether it was a separate, but it sort of dovetailed. It was the announcement about the commitment to an aggressive digital media strategy overall. And multi-platform programming and marketing. Would love to hear your thoughts on that and and maybe talk a little bit about how that transition is going with MSNBC. Right. Just one other part of that. I know that at the time there was an announcement about a digital strategic development team in Seattle was going to sort of play an important key role, sort of looking ahead. So
sure.
You could share with us.
So first, a little history for those that don't know exactly what he's talking about. In 1996, Jack Welch, who was, of course, at the time the head of GE, and Bill Gates signed an agreement to create something called MSNBC, which was to be a cable channel and a digital property. Because every era thinks that this is the be-all and end-all of all progress and knowledge, in 1996, the two parties signed a 99-year agreement with no outs. I kid you not. So anyway, and
marriage made in heaven.
What's that?
Marriage made in heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the interesting thing is, at the time, I mean, I'm not knocking it. I understand what the relationship was about, but at the time, and it's interesting just to even think about the lexicon of the day, the agreement said it was to cover the and this quote is emblazoned in my brain, the interactive delivery of news and information. Well, look at that word through the lens of 2013. What the hell does that mean? So anyway, long story short, it was in many ways, it was a great thing. It helped allow what was then called MSNBC.com to rise into the top 5 of all news websites, where it has remained ever since. But over time, as the world has evolved around us, it ceased to make a lot of sense. First of all, the way that the deal was structured, and this was true up until this past July, the newsroom for NBC News, the leader in television news in this country, one of the great powerhouses around the world of news gathering, the newsroom for NBC News on all digital platforms was based on the Microsoft campus in Redmond, Washington. So this is, you can imagine how that would be difficult in terms of workflow, culture. It really became very difficult. Again, it's not a knock on any individual. It just was not really set up for the way that we need to function in a multi-platform world. Anyway, long story short, we severed the deal by mutual agreement, which was the only way to do it, because there was no other way to unwind this deal this past July, because just like we wanted to own and control our destiny, well, Microsoft did too, and we were both sort of locked into exclusivities and commitments that was holding us both back. So we have it's a very happy divorce. We still have a relationship. We still talk to each other every day, but we've moved the center of gravity to New York. But there is still, but it's very important. There are incredibly talented people that still are on that Redmond campus, campus on Microsoft campus in Redmond, Washington, including a lot of really wonderful technologists. So, I did not wanting to follow in the path of many others that acquire a company or something like that and go, oh, we know how to do it better, go away. We want to keep that talent, and the notion of having them separate from 30 Rock, where they can think about innovation, was something very appealing. So we're going to be moving to downtown Seattle, and it's going to be the NBC News Innovation Center that will continue to do a lot of the innovative technology work, as well as continue to be a bureau for the organization. So we're still in the process of integrating and transitioning. Again, it was a 16-year relationship, and there were a lot of complications, including the fact that Microsoft, actually to this day, is still the sales organization, and we're in the process of transitioning, and we've got ad ops, and all those little pieces of that chart. Each one of those is the project managers have their 600, those grids with the 600 rows, and we've all been there.
Yeah, absolutely, great. We clearly are sort of at this point in time, the evolution of digital technology, where sort of the digital technology is intersecting with traditional news distribution, gathering, distribution, building customer relationships. If you could talk for a few minutes about how you are tackling the changes that are occurring in the market. Literally, when we talk about breaking news, very, very hard to do in an environment where breaking news can just be one person just with one tweet that just sort of takes off like wildfire around the world. What role then does a traditional news gathering organization play in that in that process? So maybe if you could talk a little bit about how you're adapting, how NBC is adapting to the new technology.
Well, it's tough, as I'm sure everybody in this room can agree. It's what makes it so complex. It's also what makes it so interesting, is to try to not just keep up, but try to sort of stay one step ahead. And I wish I had the silver bullet. If anybody does, I would love to hear it. But it's a combination of making sure that we're playing in every space, making sure that we are staying true to what our brand represents. So we have to carry those brand values with us, whether it's a 140-character tweet or a documentary or what have you on whatever platform. At the same time, we also have to, it's become a cliche, but it's still tough to execute. We have to make sure that we are at the same time becoming the instruments of our own disruption, which is very difficult culturally, as I'm sure most people in this room can attest, which is how do we make sure that we don't, become so defensive about who we are that we fail to capitalize on what's happening in the industry? So 2 examples of how that plays for us. One is we have a small company, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's 8 people that we own, called Breaking News, which was founded by Corey Bergman, who is a full-time employee of NBC Universal, and this is a wholly owned subsidiary of NBC Universal. But we keep they're on the West Coast. They're in a separate building. We are, trying to give them, their brilliant team, give them the room and the leash to try to disrupt us. And it can be uncomfortable sometimes, because Breaking News aggregates news organizations. They do not favor NBC News. If they did, it would destroy the trust that they have with their audience. At the same time, what they are learning about a mobile-first approach and a mobile-first newsroom is going to help the larger organization. The second area of disruption for us that I think about, that people, again, the cliche, what keeps you up at night, is around video. The fact that we are the leader in streaming video scares the shit out of me, because the fact is because we have so much television that we chop into bits and we stream on our website, that we offer on demand on our website, that is so successful, would make it really easy to say, we've got this thing nailed. Look how smart we are. Look how we get video on the web. Well, no, we don't. We get how to chop up television shows and put them on the web, and there's still an audience for that. And it's very easy as a legacy news organization to look at something like I'm just picking at random, like a Now This News or what HuffPo Live is doing, going, amateurs, what do they know about TV? We're NBC News. We've been doing this for 60 years. Well, I have this image of this Harvard Business School case study from 10 years from now, how about NBC News owned video and squandered it because they failed to disrupt themselves. We failed to disrupt ourselves by creating video that is not about television, to break the mold of what television news is, with your beautiful sets and your lights and your expensive packages. Not to not break the mold about journalistic integrity. That's always got to remain constant. So we're trying to blow that up at the same time that we take advantage of it. So that's 2 examples. It's very difficult to pull off. It's very difficult to anyone to pull off, but in addition, to move the culture. NBC in prime time was #1 in the fall with hits like The Voice and Sunday Night Football. And this past month, with both of those 2 hit shows on hiatus, had some ratings difficulty. And that is on the entertainment side of the shop. And again, I'm not involved with that day to day. But I think your larger question about how a digital division supports television, I would say that, I give credit to my boss, who told me in a recent meeting with her, she said to me, Pat Philly-Crushell, she said, I don't want you worrying about driving tune into television. And I have to say, I think that was actually an incredibly brave statement, because further to this theme about disruption, if we think about our digital platforms only as a big marketing play for television, that would be a huge mistake for all kinds of, about 15 different reasons that I could rattle off right now. Look, to the extent that, that we do help ratings, that's terrific, but that can't be our job. I think of it more as a virtuous circle, which is, television drives to the web. The web certainly does drive to television to some extent, but creates content that can then be used on television. But it's got to be organic. Otherwise, the audience won't buy it. People can see through that. We need to give people a reason to come to our digital properties for their own sake, not because they are a spin-off of whatever's on television. It's what people call the moron syndrome. And the moron syndrome is, for moron, this story, go to NBCnews.com. That ain't it. I know, I love that. I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. That was Steve Kappas. But where we are advantaged by television, and this is a big deal, is in advertising, because there is